Hey guys, so welcome to the first math video. In part 1 we're going to be covering algebra all the way from the basics down to more complicated things. But before we even start that, I just want to introduce you guys to a couple of little tricks. Now, the tricks, the idea behind them, is that a lot of the times you don't have to go through and do the math step by step, but you can employ some sneaky little tricks instead. Anything on this test that is going to make you faster and more accurate is worth doing. So remember, nobody's going to be looking through your work and seeing that you did every step in, the more traditional way. So using tricks is always a good idea. Okay, this is solving backwards. So basically the idea is that you're going to look at the question, and if there's numbers in the answer choices, which I realize aren't filled in for a reason yet, you're going to be able to most of the times solve backwards. So when you solve backwards, basically you don't have to do the algebra. Instead, you can just use numbers, which you can use, on paper, in your head, on the calculator. It's a lot easier. So for instance, here's a problem. There are X number of people playing with 60 cards. If one person leaves, they continue to use 60 cards and there are no remainders. Okay, great. So then after this, it would say either how many people were there originally, how many people are there now, or something like what is the least number of people possible or the lowest number of, highest number of people possible. So in the case that it's going to say just how many, so essentially what is X, what you would do is start at your middle answer choice. The reason you start with your middle is that your answer choices are going to be from low to high. So if you start in the middle and it's wrong, you can cross out either A, B, and C, or C, D, and E. So I'm going to fill in some answer choices for this, and then we're going to look at the other way around as well. Okay, so here are our answers. So we would start with C, and we'd say, great, there are 12 people. So essentially what the question is asking is, can you divide 12 into 60? So when you divide 60 into 12, does that work? And also, if you have one less person, you now have 11. So you've got 60 divided by 11. And does that one work? So 60 divided by 12 works, it's 5, but 60 divided by 11, not so much. So we know that C is incorrect, and we can cross it out. So here comes the tough part of which direction do you move, and in this question it's actually not obvious because we're not looking for, bigger or smaller numbers necessarily, but we're looking for what might divide in. However, if you're looking at this and being kind of sneaky, you can see a number like 40, if you take 1 away from it, 39, that's not going to fit in. The next closest number would be 30. And also 60, 59, that's not going to work either. So getting bigger is probably not a good idea. So let's go ahead and look at 7. So we do the same thing and say 60 divided by 7 and 60 divided by 6. So 60 divided by 6 is 10, but 60 divided by 7, not a whole number. So we can cross that out, and we know that A is the correct answer. Now, the only time in which we wouldn't want to start with C and then go up or down is if it asks for the smallest or greatest value of X, Y, Z, etc. So if this had said instead, what is the lowest, that says lowest value of X, then instead of going through this whole thing and starting with C, I would just start with A because A is the smallest, and I would find that A works, which let me go ahead and show you that. So 60 divided by 6 is 10, check. And then 60 divided by 5 is 12, check. So we would know that the correct answer is A, and we'd be able to circle it right then and there. Okay, the next little method that makes it so you don't have to do so much of the algebra is you can pick numbers. So you can pick numbers when you see that the answer choices have variables in them, or you're dealing with something like percents or fractions. So let me go ahead and write down an example prompt for you guys. Okay, so here's a pretty classic picking numbers question. So for all positive values of x, which of the following is odd? Alright, so what you could do if you weren't picking numbers is you could just look at this and use an advanced knowledge of number properties, but that's not as easy as it could be, and you always want to do the fastest, easiest thing you can. So for here, we have all positive values of x, so we can pick a small positive value. So I'm going to say 2, just because that's pretty small and pretty easy. And then you just plug 2 in for x in all of the problems. Okay, so I went ahead and put everything in green so we can see a little more easily. And as you can see, if we plug in 2 for x, the first one is even, so we can get rid of a. Second one is odd, we have to keep it. Third one is odd, we have to keep it. And D is even. So as you can see with picking numbers, sometimes you're going to have to pick numbers twice. And that's actually purposely I picked this problem so that we could see that. So that when you have it on the real test, you won't, pick numbers once and not know what's going on. So when picking numbers, you must check every answer unless they give you a good reason not to. Alright, so it said all positive values of x, so x could be 2 or x could be 3. So let's go ahead and just double check the ones that we didn't cross out. So 3 times 3 would be 9 plus 1 equals 10. So it's not B. That's good to know. And then our next one would be 3 squared, which equals 9. And I actually just saw right now, I put in 3 squared over here equals 9. I should have put 2 squared equals 4, which would have crossed C out in the first run as well. And then on the last one, we have 2 times 3 plus 5, which is equal to 11. So E is the only one that works for that.